Well, again in the autumn garden, now that the machine noise, I hope, has stopped across the back fence and I've stopped swearing and doing my block. I really did do my block. I was halfway through the video. I was droning on and on about Walden, so maybe the interruption did me some good. And so now I think that we're going to talk about Walden. And we're going to talk about one Henry David Thoreau, his author. But there's a bit here about economy, and I just love his wordsmith, his writing, and how he ranted a bit. Let's rant. Okay, so his whole deal, I think, reading, is that he was an anti-materialist. He felt that men could live very simply, merely by having the things that he could get from nature, and maybe a thing or two more. And so he spent some time at Walden. It was like a 2-year-long experiment, a bit more, I think. And he came with some conclusions that most men are enslaved. Fine. Okay. So from this slave, because I am enslaved, I'm going to begin to delve into some of his words. When I wrote the following pages, or rather the bulk of them, I lived alone, in the woods, a mile from any neighbour, in a house which I had built myself on the shore of Walden Pond in Concord, Massachusetts, and earned my living by the labour of my hands only. I lived there 2 years and 2 months. At present I am a sojourner in civilised life again. Okay, so just see the concise way that he covers so much in just one short paragraph, actually, and so we get the gist of what he went through, and the writing is both beautiful and concise. It's quite interesting. So let's say but men labour under a mistake. The better part of man is soon ploughed into the soil for compost. By seeming fates commonly called necessity, they are employed, as it says in an old book, laying up treasures which moth and rust will corrupt, and thieves break through and steal. It is a fool's life, as they will find when they get to the end of it, if not before. It is said that Deucalion and Pyrrha created men by throwing stones over their heads behind them. I don't know if this is ancient Greek or Latin, but let's give it a go. Inde genus Durham sumus, experiensque laborum, sounds like Latin, et documenta damus qua sumus origine nati. Or, as Raleigh rhymes it in his sonorous ways, is that Walter Raleigh? I don't know. From thence our kind-hearted is, enduring pain and care, approving that our bodies of a stony nature are. So much for a blind obedience to a blundering oracle, throwing the stones over their heads behind them and not seeing where they fell. Most men, even in this comparatively free country, through mere ignorance and mistake, hammering, should I do my block again? Bah! Are so occupied with the factitious cares and superfluously coarse labours of life that as fine as fruits cannot be plucked by them. Their fingers from excessive toil are too clumsy and tremble too much for that. Right, so this is basically sums up his philosophy. He goes on quite a lot about this. And the finest qualities of our nature, like bloom on fruits, can be preserved only by the most delicate handling. Yet we do not treat ourselves nor one another thus tenderly. Some of you, we all know, are poor, find it hard to live, and sometimes, as it were, gasping for breath. I have no doubt that some of you who read this book are unable to pay for all the dinners which you have actually eaten, or for the coats and shoes which are fast wearing or are already worn out, and have come to this page to spend borrowed or stolen time, robbing your creditors of an hour. Wow. That really speaks of the slavery of debt, doesn't it? Of how we borrow our time to pay for things that we cannot really pay for. Well, that's really thought-provoking, I find. It is very evident what mean and sneaking lives many of you lead, for my sight has been whetted by experience. Always on the limits, trying to get into business and trying to get out of debt. A very ancient sloth, called by the Latins as alienum, another's brass. For some of their coins were made of brass, still living and dying and buried by this other's brass, always promising to pay tomorrow and dying today insolvent. Seeking to curry favour, to get custom, by how many modes, not only state prison offences, lying, flattering, voting, contracting yourselves into a nutshell of civility, or dilating into an atmosphere of thin and vaporous generosity, that you may persuade your neighbour to let you make his shoes, or his hat, or his coat, or his carriage, or import his groceries for him. Making yourself sick, that you may lay up something against a sick day, something to be tucked away in an old chest or in a stocking behind the plastering, or more safely into the brick bank, no matter where, no matter how much or how little. He goes on like this for a while, and believe me, it's all worth reading. And when I say he goes on, I don't mean it in an impatient way. Every line is wordsmith magic. What is this destiny to him compared with a shipping interest? Does he not drive for squire, make a stir? How godlike, how immortal is he? See how he cowers and sneaks, how vaguely all day he fears not being immortal, nor divine, but the slave and prisoner of his own opinion of himself, a fame won by his own deeds. Public opinion is a weak tyrant compared with our own private opinion. What a man thinks of himself, that is which determines, or rather indicates, his fate. Self-emancipation, even in the West Indian provinces of the fancy and imagination. What Wilberforce is there to bring that about? I think Wilberforce was an emancipator. Think also of the ladies of the land, weaving toilet cushions against the last day, not to betray too green an interest in their fates. Well, what he's saying there is that the women are setting aside their ambition, lest people think that they are ambitious. So they're doing it for the purposes of appearances. And then this last line is brutal, if you think about it, but I love it. As if you could kill time without injuring eternity. I mean, as if you could kill time without injuring eternity. Who comes up with shadowy stuff like that? See what I did there? The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. From the desperate city you go into the desperate country and have to console yourself with the bravery of minks and muskrats. A stereotype but unconscious despair is concealed even under what are called the games and amusements of mankind. There is no play in them, for this comes after work. But it is a characteristic of wisdom not to do desperate things. And here he gets to one of his points. When we consider what, to use the words of a catechism, is a chief end of man. Is it catechism? I think it's catechism. To use the words of a catechism is a chief end of man. And what are the true necessaries and means of life? It appears as if men had deliberately chosen the common mode of living because they preferred it to any other. I think he's trying to suggest that society makes choices for us that are not our own. Yet they honestly think there is no choice left, but alert and healthy natures remember that the sun rose clear. It is never too late to give up our prejudices. No way of thinking or doing, however ancient, can be trusted without proof. What everybody echoes or in silence passes by as true today may turn out to be falsehood tomorrow, mere smoke of opinion, which some had trusted for a crowd that would sprinkle fertilizing rain on their fields. What old people say you cannot do, you try and find that you can. Old deeds for old people, and new deeds for new. Old people did not know enough once, perchance, to fetch fresh fuel to keep the fire going. New people put a little dry wood under a pot, and are whirled round the globe with the speed of birds in a way to kill old people, as a phrase is. An autumn sneeze. Age is no better, hardly so well qualified for an instructor as youth, for it has not profited as much as it has lost. I'm going to read that again. Age is no better, hardly so well qualified for an instructor as youth, for it has not profited as much as it has lost. One may almost doubt if a wisest man has learned anything of absolute value by living. Practically, the old have no very important advice to give the young. Their own experience has been so partial, and their lives have been such miserable failures for private reasons as they must believe, and it may be that they have some faith left which belies that experience, and they are only less young than they were. I have lived some 30 years on this planet, and I have yet to hear the first syllable of valuable or even earnest advice from my seniors. They have told me nothing and probably cannot tell me anything to the purpose. Here is life, an experiment to a great extent and tried by me, but it does not avail me that they have tried it. If I have any experience which I think valuable, I'm sure to reflect that my mentors said nothing about. One farmer says to me, "You cannot live on vegetable food solely, for it furnishes nothing to make bones with." And so he religiously devotes a part of his day to supplying his system with the raw material bones, walking all the while he talks behind his oxen, which with vegetable-made bones jerk him and his lumbering plough along in spite of every obstacle. Some things are really necessaries of life in some circles, the most helpless and diseased, which in others are luxuries merely, and in others still are entirely unknown. Well, we're finding out a lot about one Henry David Thoreau, and I have to admit, I love how he writes. I wish I could match his wit, his insight, his facility with words, his conciseness. But unfortunately, I am but a mere mortal. So, here we have a little bit more of this writing. Measuring. He's talking about measuring, and you can tell this is unprepared. Of what use is measuring of me if she does not measure my character, but only the breadth of my shoulders, as if it were a peg to hang the coat on? We worship not the graces, not the passe, but fashion. She spins and weaves and cuts with full authority. The head monkey at Paris puts on a traveller's cap, and all the monkeys in America do the same. I sometimes despair of getting anything quite simple and honest done in this world. By the help of men, that they would have to be passed through a powerful press first to squeeze their old notions out of them, so that they would not soon get upon their legs again. And then there would be someone in the company with a maggot in his head, hatched from an egg deposited there nobody knows when. Not even fire kills these things, and you would have lost your labour. Nevertheless, we will not forget that some Egyptian wheat was handed down to us by a mummy. Well, I sit here in the start of the rain, enjoying it myself in these wonderful words. The water, the rain does not bother me one little bit. I hope I managed to imbue you with some measure of curiosity about this writer, Henry David Thoreau. I highly recommend his words to you. Thank you for joining me today. All the best, and let's drink up to the rain, the source of life.